What's going on, Duke fans? It's Jack with JD, and we've got another good Duke ACC matchup this Saturday at noon in Cameron. Duke will be taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame is coming into this one having lost 22 of their last 23 ACC road games. So it'll be a big game for the Irish to try to get on track on the road. And for Duke, looking to continue their dominance in conference play. So, with that being said, JD, what are you looking forward to most, or what are a couple of things you're looking forward to in this game with Notre Dame?
First and foremost, I get a kick out of the fact that the head coach Shrewsbury for Notre Dame is coaching his son. And I always love when there's that interaction between the coach and his son. It's just interesting to see how it plays out. I think I didn't give enough love in the post game to the Cameron Crazies who are back in force. And I expect them for a noon game on Saturday to be, shall we say, ready to go with plenty of time for extracurricular activities afterwards. Um, but let's go, Jack, take us through the Notre Dame players. It's kind of, I've looked through the roster and everything and the stats, and it's pretty clear where their strength is.
I mean, it starts with Marcus Burton. He's
Absolutely.
he's electric. He was ACC Freshman of the Year last year. He beat out our very own Mr. Jared McCain. I know. Listen, I know a lot of us Duke fans were hoping McCain would get that award. I certainly understood why they went with Marcus Burton because as a freshman he had a bigger lift, I guess. He had to carry more of the weight for Notre Dame than Jared McCain did at Duke, but I think it could have gone to either guy. With that being said, Marcus Burton is really tough to stay in front of. In front of, he's very shifty. He is small. He's like listed at 5'11". I don't know if he's 5'11". His 3-point shot isn't great, but he does a good job of creating separation, scoring from the mid range, or even getting all the way to the basket. And when they didn't have Marcus Burton, they struggled. And since he's been back, they haven't won games, but they've been darn close to winning several. So it starts with Marcus Burton, and then after Burton, as you said, JD, it's Coach Shrewsbury's son, Braden Shrewsbury, who is a fantastic shooter, knocking down about 37% of his threes this year on a high number of attempts, close to 9 attempts per game. Really good. Shot the ball well against Duke, especially in the second game last year. Then you also have Tay Davis. So both Burton and Braden Shrewsbury are sophomores. You've got Tay Davis, who's a transfer from Seton Hall. He's a junior. This is his second year with Coach Shrewsbury. He played really well, especially when Marcus Burton was out. He seemed to find a rhythm as a guy who could score off the bounce. He's a similar size, actually, to Cooper Flagg, 6'9", 210. He did a good job in other matchups of if somebody was too small, he kind of like bullied them in the post. If they were bigger than him, he used his quickness to get around. He's not a shooter, but he does a good job of scoring in and around the basket. And the last guy, I think they have, four guys who are clearly contributing at a little bit higher level than everyone else, and that's Matt Aloko, the grad transfer from Princeton. He stepped into the point guard role without Marcus Burton. He's their second. I would say he's like their second leading playmaker on this team. He's a good shooter, and he can pass. He's a solid defender, not necessarily a great defender. But they go with their starting lineup, which also includes Keba and Jai. They go 6'3", sorry, 5'11", 6'3", 6'4", 6'9", 6'10. And Njai, as they were talking about in the broadcast of the last game, was one of the people to benefit from Marcus Burton coming back because Marcus Burton can kind of set him up. And also, because Marcus Burton is tough to stay in front of one-on-one, it forces the opposition to help, which can free up, the big man, in this case, Keba Njai, or maybe a three-point shooter like Aloko or Shrewsbury.
Um, just a little background there. So Marcus, Braden, and Ty are all Indiana natives and have come home to work. To work.
I guess it's work
To,
now. Everyone's getting paid.
um, but they're there. And Marcus was his senior year of high school. He was Indiana Mr. Basketball, which is always a big deal in Indiana.
Certainly.
So um, we'll get to the keys to the game for me in a bit, but that's just a little color on the starting five.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that. Perfect segue. So let's look at the bench, which includes, I'm going to butcher this, I apologize, but J.R. Konezny. He's been there a few years now. He's a redshirt junior, redshirted one of his years at Notre Dame. He is a 6'7" wing. He's a good shooter, not a great shooter. Comes off the bench. Now, it has been a little bit difficult because of the injury to Marcus Burton in terms of figuring out like exactly how many minutes guys are going to play. But with that being said, just looking at the last game, the box score against NC State, there wasn't no one off the bench played double-digit minutes. So Coach Shrewsbury had a lot of confidence in his starting five. And then of these four players that I'm going to mention, no one played 10 minutes or more. The guy who played the most minutes was Julian Roper, who is basically at this point a defensive specialist. He is how do I put this? I wouldn't say he's a non-shooter, but he's not. He's a bad shooter. Let's just call it how it is. He's a good defender. He's about 6'4". He's really struggling this year with his shot. He did shoot like below average in the past. This year it's just really bad. I don't know. Don't watch enough Notre Dame basketball to understand what's going on there. They also have Nikita Konstantinovsky.
Good luck with that. He's from the Ukraine. If you got that one, that's the 7-footer.
Yes, who has been around. This is his fourth program. He spent some time at a JUCO. He was at Tulsa for a couple of years, then Monmouth. He's their backup center. He'll play 5 to 10 minutes. And then lastly, Sir Mohammed was a ESPN Top 100 recruit. Hasn't carved out a real role with this Notre Dame team as of yet. He is a 6'6" freshman. I expect him to get some playing time, but I, again, don't expect it to be more than 10 minutes in this game against Duke.
I would say that for the keys to this game, what I'm looking for is, let's start with the fact that there's no question that the starting five has been solidified, and they're really getting to know each other, trust each other, and that is going to be important for the long-term trajectory of Duke. With Proctor, Sion, Mal, K2, and Cooper Flagg, who there were just a gazillion highlight reels of that dunk from the last game. Everybody seemed to have that all over the place. It was just great. But that's the starting five, and they each had a really good game. So here's what I think has to happen is they continue to solidify this starting five. They are going to play their suffocating defense with everyone else contributing to this. And once again, you've got a backcourt that comes in averaging 34 points a game. And we saw what happened last game.
One
That
one difference though, at least with Shrewsbury, he can shoot it, whereas the pick guards were not good shooters. I think that's important because, like I've mentioned, the one way to beat this Duke team we've seen so far this year is to shoot the three ball well. And Shrewsbury did that last year at Cameron. And so I think he at least presents a little bit of a different dynamic than the Pittsburgh guards.
um, look, I can. Oh, we'll have to see who Mal uh, matches up with. Which one of the guards? Is this going to
Probably,
be a regular thing?
well, it will be Burton because if they're going to try to, run pick and roll and Duke is going to switch, Shrewsbury is more off the ball. And I imagine Proctor is going to get that assignment. So that would mean that if it's Sion. Also, by the way, if Sion James is switched onto the center, are you worried about Sion down low? Not
Nope.
really. Right. And so if you're not worried about, it's kind of like the Celtics. Like when the Celtics switch and they have Derek White or Drew Holiday on the opposing big man, it's like the Celtics have him right where they want him. I can't quite go that far with Sion James, but am I worried? No. And
No.
the way Mal defended on the perimeter last game, I I mean we'll have to see it again, but I would feel fairly confident with him out there as well. This will be Marcus Burton shifty is a little bit higher test than Jalen Lowe, who's also very good, but I don't think quite as explosive as Marcus Burton.
So I guess my first key is the starting five, the lockdown D again. This is going to become a trademark of this Duke team. And I think that if they can, I mean, we talked last time, could Duke run the table in the ACC? And the way that they're going to have to do it is actually through their defense. You're not going to win 18 games by, out in Duke's case, by out shooting on offense. It is going to come from
20 games.
The 20-game schedule now, right? Okay, 17-3, right? 18-2. 20-game schedule. So, but so that's one. Two is we didn't see much from Caleb Foster in the last game, and it's time to get him more involved. And certainly, certainly, it would be nice if the sniper
Isaiah
would,
Evans.
would just go off from 3-point range. He's been kind of quiet the last couple of games.
He's
The
probably
microwave,
due.
he's due. The microwave
Yeah.
is due. So, let's see that happen. So Foster and Isaiah Evans. And then the third thing would be, it seems the way that you mapped out their starters and their players that Mal has again that height advantage in the middle. And he's got 4 inches plus you never can, it's 4 inches plus. That reach is ridiculous. So the K to K connection to Mal inside, like to see that a couple of times. So suffocating D, the guards, the two substitute guards, Microwave and Foster getting off, and Mal, a couple of nice lobs inside. I don't know if I'm going to see that same defensive effort again, though. Pretty remarkable for a 7-foot guy to move his feet that well at his age. just mind blowing.
And this is kind of a side, but also kind of related. I've been I checked out like a couple of mock drafts, just curious, yesterday, and Malawach was like down in the late 20s, and I was like, have you been watching the same guy? Like, I understand if you just look at the counting stats, they're not, super impressive, but um with Malawach, it's not about the numbers. It's about his impact. And to your point, if he could defend that like that on the perimeter, with the way he defends the basket, and we know he has legitimate shooting touch, so the offense again, or I shouldn't say again, but Malawach, we all know how young Cooper Flagg is, second youngest player in college basketball. Malawach is the fifth youngest, and I would even argue has a higher potential than even Cooper Flagg because of the fact that
Whoa,
Malawach. Well, hold on.
I just got out of surgery. Come on.
I'm, I'm not saying. I'm not saying. How do I? That may not have been the best way to phrase it, but what I'm trying to say is that he has more untapped potential. I think that's a better way to put it because he started playing basketball when he was like 13 or 14, where Cooper Flagg, I'm sure, was playing basketball when he was 3 or 4 years old. And so the amount, like the growth curve for Malawach, I think could be even greater. And I think his offense is going to come along, and we've seen it come along as the year has gone on. I think that's a good point. It's funny to me you mentioned Evans and Foster because those were two guys who I had written down on the Duke side. Can we get a little bit more out of them? Mason Gillis was certainly our best player off the bench against Pittsburgh,
Yep.
and he's been playing really well as of late. As you said, everyone in the starting five played well, and my hope is just can they continue it? Can Malik Brown? He's been a little bit quiet as of late. He hasn't been quite as disruptive as he had been in the past. Some of that has to do with the fact that Malawach has played better, so he's gotten a little bit less minutes. But can he, make an impact in the same way that Evans can offensively? Can he do what he's done defensively? And then lastly, on the Duke side, I mean, Cooper Flagg is Cooper Flagg. We don't necessarily have to talk too much about him. I think he's awesome. Can he continue to keep being awesome? Is I guess the only question. And speaking of that, can Mr. Con Knipple keep it going? In his last 4 games, he's been shooting 43% from three. So can he continue to find the back of the net?
Uh, as far as Cooper Flagg and his ceiling is concerned, his awesomeness, which may be his new nickname, I I don't even think, with Mal, we look at him and we think of Mark Williams, and we think of Derek Lively. And if he turns out to be like them, that would be just great. He'll have a really nice pro career. Cooper Flagg, I think, actually also is nowhere near his ceiling yet.
I
His
agree.
his when you lead the team in all five categories and can affect the game on both sides of the court, his ability to throw in his agility, his jumper is starting to come around really nicely. He's just around 80% from the free throw lane. Is there anything else you expect from him other than consistency to do this game after game? But I don't know how many games we've done already where we've said, well, I give the gold to Cooper Flagg. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and I guess I want to reiterate poor phrasing by me earlier. I don't think Malawach has a higher ceiling than Cooper. It's more so that he just hasn't played as much basketball. So I think he's
okay,
got
fair enough.
more. He may have more room to grow. Is a better way to put it. But to your point, Cooper Flag, I mean, like, what can he not do? It's just or like, what more does he have to do to make you a like? I know there was a lot of people early on, like at the next level, he'll be a really good number 2 option or maybe number 3 option. He looks like a guy at the next level who's gonna go score 25 points a night and get you 8 rebounds and 5 or 6 assists and play really good defense. Now, I'm not saying he's going to put those numbers up as a rookie. He'll probably be around 17, 18 points. But I think, when he's 23, I would be surprised if he stays healthy, if he's not averaging around 24, 25 points a game.
It'll be very interesting because the way that Paolo Banchero and
Jason Tatum. I know that's where
you're
going.
And Tatum. Yes, exactly. Because the way that they then grew into their pro body, and Coop's not there yet. He's 18 years old. If he can, not if, when he adds the necessary muscle to play in the NBA and retains the skill set that he has, I am just looking forward to watching him play for the next,
Because the thing about Cooper right now is he's like, he puts himself in great positions to score. Sometimes around the basket, he's not finishing. And I think some of that is just because he's 18, like he hasn't quite, that's an understatement. He's got a ways to go, to develop and, put on muscle, all that stuff. Like, he's just getting started. And the thing that makes me so confident about his ability to improve is what we've seen already this year. The only thing that I will say that his bugaboo is that spin move, which he still does, and he turns it over. But other than that, I feel like he picks things up and he improves, like, game after game, even within games. It's pretty remarkable to see his growth as this year has gone on, and we still have more than half the season to go. So I'm really excited to continue watching Cooper Flag. And we've spent about 4 minutes talking about Cooper Flag after I said, what could you possibly say,
So, Jack, the last 2 games from Notre Dame against ACC North Carolina teams, fill us in a bit.
Yes, let's take it a step further back and then we'll get there. So, as of right now, Notre Dame is coming into this game 7-8. They are 1-3 in conference play. This is Coach Shrewsbury's second year. They've lost 3 in a row in conference play. And as JD was just alluding to, they've lost their last 2 games against North Carolina teams by 1 point apiece in games. I don't want to be too harsh, but you could certainly make the argument that they were Notre Dame's games to win, I think is the politically correct way to put it. And they are currently 88th on KenPom. They are 56th on offense, which is pretty good. They're 147th on defense. Most interesting thing, though, and this definitely is in line with the fact that they've lost their last 2 games by 1 point, they have been – I want to preface this by saying I don't know how KenPom, like, what his parameters are, how the statistic is formed for his luck statistic, but they've been one of the most unlucky teams in college basketball this year. So with that being said, they've lost their last 2 games to North Carolina schools by 1 point. Let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Will it be 3 straight games that they're going to lose to a North Carolina school by 1 point? And if not, what do you think the score is going to be of this Duke Notre Dame game? So let us know in the comments below. We'll be chiming in. What do you think, JD? How do you think this one pans out?
I mean, it's hard to go back to South Bend having lost to all three. Well, that's not true. There's also Wake Forest, but to lose to three
Well,
of
the
the,
triangle.
yeah, at least the triangle. Okay, fair enough. It would be tough. And so I think that they're going to do, um, that is going to be a motivating factor that they lost their last two games by 1 point. In fact, Burton had a chance to win the game against NC State. He had the last shot and it didn't go in.
He also had a
Yes,
chance
Jack.
against North Carolina. He also had a last second shot. By the way, and that one certainly could have been called a foul. But it wasn't. So they lost the game. But to your point, they've had a chance in each of their last games. I would think I would never do this, but if you're somebody who likes to bet, I would think you would take Notre Dame in the points in this game. That's how I would look at it. I think Duke wins, but I don't even know how confident I am in saying you should take Notre Dame in the points because Duke's defense is so good. I scratch that. Duke's going to win this game. I don't know what the line is. Won't know until Saturday. I think Duke wins this game 84-60.
There's no reason they shouldn't. With the poor or middling ranking of the Notre Dame defense,
Yep.
it is an opportunity for our offense to definitely score in the 80s. And what can you say about our defense? It's just stifling. It's for the older members of our fan base, really older members, it's like the steel curtain.
Oh, you went back.
My favorite NFL football team ever, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the steel curtain, they shut down everybody. And so that was it's funny that was a team that it was as much fun to watch the offense as it was to watch the defense. And Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, don't want to go through it. Most of our listeners probably are way too young to know the players on the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the analogy of that 4-time winning Super Bowl squad to have both a dynamic offense and a dynamic defense, I think Duke is certainly equal to the task in having just a defense that is reminiscent of last year's Iowa State and Houston teams, but in a different way. It's got more size to it and not as quite as frenetic as those two teams were. But I would also say their offense, sometimes they don't have to score that many points. And you and I were laughing at the end of the last game. We were just doing the math and we said, they did win by 29 points. So they could score 80 and the other team will just break 50. So do I think that will happen again? Other than the fact that they had these two heartbreaking losses in a row, I think there's every reason for Duke to continue this role and to win by 25.
I'm gonna make an update to my prediction. I'm gonna say 84-66. The reason being, I think with Shrewsbury and Alaco to a lesser extent, Notre Dame can hit the three, which I think is a kind of a big difference compared to Pittsburgh. To your point, almost scored 80 points against Pittsburgh. The offense had a great second half, scoring 42 points. If my math is right, maybe might be wrong. But they scored 40 plus points in the second half. And with that being said, they almost scored 80 in the game, and they had a stretch where they were 1 for 13. So this Duke offense is trending in the right direction. The defense, Coach Shire had said a few times in the past couple weeks that he thought the defense could go to another level, and it's hard to necessarily say because we haven't played the same level of opponent that we did early on in the season with the Auburns, Kansas, Kentucky,
Right.
right? But we played the third best school in the ACC, and they scored 22 points in the second half. And they were averaging 84. So who am I to say that the defense hasn't gotten to another level? So I think I just think it's a tough game for Notre Dame. Um, but that's what makes college basketball fun is that each game you don't necessarily know. And if Duke doesn't play their A game, and let's say Duke is at a C plus level and Notre Dame is at an A game, it's going to be a very close game. So
The
you
only
never know.
thing I'll add is tonight's semifinals of the college football playoffs. It's Notre Dame versus Penn State. And I think all eyes in South Bend are on the football team.
That's fair. And one last thing I wanted to throw out at you before we close the show here. Lil Duke in the NBA action. I want you to give some insight to our viewers, our listeners here. So Kyrie Irving, they just announced he's going to miss the next couple of weeks with a bulging disc. You have a little bit of experience. Talk to that. What is Kyrie? What's he going through right now?
Well, the problem is where is the bulging disc? From my years of playing basketball, um, upper part of your back, it's your ability to move your head and neck. Lower part of the back, it's your ability to bend over. Often it's accompanied by sciatica. So the one that I couldn't handle, which was the most painful, was right smack in the middle. And so a bulging disc basically is an injury where the disc has been impaired and it's resting on the nerve. And it is just insanely painful. And that, what was it? He's going to miss as much as
They said 1 to 2 weeks. It seemed like that would be when they would kind of reevaluate. Is my understanding. That seems very short for a bulging disc.
it depends on depends how much it's bulging. If it's sitting on the nerve and it's actually causing back spasms and pain, it's pretty hard. But it also depends where along the vertebrae the disc is. But I think that's more than enough on it. Sorry to hear that about Kyrie. He's
All
been
right.
playing really good ball for the Mavericks.
Thanks for the back insight, Dr. JD. And with that, we'll close out the program here. We'll see you guys post game Saturday. So that'll be around 2:15 Eastern time. Should be a fun one. Make sure to join us for the post game party. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please give this video a like. It helps us grow. Share with your friends and drop a comment. We want to hear from you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.